There we go. All right.
So from there, huh?
Yes, sir. I can do that. All right. So, how do you mend a country after a civil war has literally brought brother against brother? Now, in our United States history, it was called Reconstruction. That was the period of Reconstruction.
Carpetbaggers.
I'll be honest with you. The period of Reconstruction is so poorly taught in school. So it was just sort of like the end of the Civil War. Now let's go on to the railroads and coast to coast and manifest destiny and whatnot. They just totally skip out those years. Right now we're dealing with an impeachment situation. The first president who was ever impeached was over Reconstruction, Andrew Johnson, because he didn't want to do what the Republicans wanted in the House. And so that they kept bringing up bills, and he kept vetoing. They override him, and I think he had the most record number of vetoes of any president. And so they just had an impeachment to try to get rid of him. It didn't succeed, obviously.
Well, he went on to do stuff that they didn't want done anyway, didn't he?
Yeah. No, that was Andrew Jackson that did that. But anyway, so Johnson, after the impeachment, became a little bit more open-minded and went along with the flow. So they got what they wanted in the long term without having to impeach him. But the point is that it's such a poorly taught subject that when I was listening to the teaching company, I was like, wow, I never knew that. I never knew. I knew certain things, carpetbaggers and whatnot. But as far as the length to which who was going to take care, who was going to make sure that the southern states were brought back into the fold? What was going to be the penalty? What about citizenship? What about the veterans down there? Did they get the same veteran status as? What about? I think that General Lee never got his citizenship back, ever. Even after he died, they wouldn't. So there was a lot of that animosity still going on, regardless. And so that, since we've experienced that in our history, you got to understand with King David and his situation, how do you bring back this country that has just been split open by civil war? Now, what if those that opposed you were your own family? I mean, think about that now. In King David's situation, he's got his nephews, one of which was his military commander, and the other, and another one was helped his son out. You've got his grandfather-in-law and what happened with him. Mm-hmm. So I mean, you really got. I mean, it's bad enough that you've got to deal with the politics of trying to mend a country that has been split open by civil war, but the family that has been just ripped asunder because of all of this. That's also got to be something. It's got to be very, very, very stressful. Abraham Lincoln had a tough enough time. Imagine if his siblings were opposing him on the other side. How difficult would that have made the family get-togethers afterward? Yeah. Now
they were both killed in the war.
Now, if something like that does happen, do you forgive and forget? Do you let bygones be bygone? By the way, I looked up the word bygone in the dictionary. It says, the literal definition of it says, things gone by. Bygone, gone by.
See, that's a cardinal sin. You should never have to use the word itself in its definition.
Well, it's the two parts of the word, bygone, gone by. But the concept is let history stay there. Let's move forward with what we're dealing with. Now, I asked myself as I was going through this lesson, am I capable of that? If I've been betrayed by someone so close to me, I don't know that I'd ever be able to 100% trust that person again. Or if I did try to mend the fences, so to speak, it wouldn't take much but the slightest provocation to kick him out. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I would have a thin skin when it came to trust again. But I mean, you've done all these violations, I'll come out. But if you the slightest smell that you're doing something disloyal to me, I'm gonna have to take care of it. And if the answer is no, if you can't ever trust that person again, the only other option is to clean house and begin anew, which is different if it's political versus family. What are you going to do? Kill your siblings? Kill your relative? I may try to move on, but like I said, at the slightest bump in the road, I'd be forced to clean house. Especially in King David's case, where his life is literally on the line. I mean, secession happens when kings die. I mean, think about that. So let's look at those that betrayed him. All right, and I've got a list up here, but I'm going to try to do this virtually. If you have issues with it, let me know. By the way, we're in 2 Samuel 19 is where we're starting today. You've got Absalom. Who's Absalom? His son that tried to take the throne and tried to kill him. You've got Bathsheba's grandfather, Ahithophel, who turned on David and gave good advice to Absalom. You have David's nephew Abishai, who is Joab and Ashel's brother. Remember those three over there. Abishai was the guy that Absalom took as his military commander on that side. So you got three nephews. Two of them are with David. One of them is against. You've got David's concubines. All 10 of them taken publicly by Absalom. How do you deal with that sort of trust? I mean, that's a little bit more, forgive me, intimate.
Concubine knows what she's told.
Yeah, but I mean, do you sleep with that concubine again? You know? You've got Mephibosheth.
I'll get some new ones.
Yeah. You've got Mephibosheth, who is Saul's grandson, who supposedly stayed behind to regain the throne since David was gone. And that's the guy that I'm really disappointed in more than anybody else in this. I mean, what ingratitude that is. You know. Then you've got that Shimei guy that was throwing rocks and dirt. That was throwing rocks and dirt and insults upon David as he was just trying to pass through on his way to leaving.
Can I say something? Somewhere this week, I read something that was David's last words. And I didn't read it, but I wonder if they included that in the song or whatever it was.
Those were his last words. Those were his last words, and then the next verse is that, and then he died and they buried him. You have 10 of 12 tribes that joined under Absalom's banner to fight against David in 10-1 odds, and David was victorious. How can he possibly deal with all of that? Under those conditions, can trust exist at all? This is usually when the king executes everybody who was involved. Hey, you fought against me, kill him. You fought against me, kill him. Well, first things first, do they want David to even be their king? You know, I mean, just because he won doesn't mean necessarily that the elders want him to be their king. So let's start there. Sweetheart, 2 Samuel 19, 9 through 5.
You told me to have a different verse.
I know.
2 Samuel what?
19, verses 9 through 15.
Throughout the tribes of Israel, all the people were arguing amongst themselves, saying, the king delivered us from the hand. May God deal with me, be it ever so severely, if you are not the commander of my army for life in place of Joab. 14.
There's another nephew of David's. All right, so David is telling him, you're going to be my military commander when I get set up. Now, think about it. What would have happened if Abraham Lincoln had said, General Lee, you're going to be the leader of the military now? I mean, that probably would have had a unificating.
I was going to say, that would have been a good thing to do.
It probably would have. And so that's what David's doing. He's using diplomacy. Not only is he trying to soothe over, this question of, are you going to kill me or not, sort of thing, but he's also trying to heal the nation, all right? So you were the military commander over there. I'm going to let you take over Joab's spot as military commander once we get back in. So I think he's trying to soothe over not only the political thing, but also his family as well. I mean, this guy's got to be concerned about his future. So what has happened is everybody's sort of arguing amongst themselves. What are we supposed to do? Is David going to be our king or not? And the elders themselves are arguing about it. Remember, the elders are each individual tribe is sort of like a council.
Anybody asking God about this?
Yeah, it doesn't seem so, but we know where God's heart lies in this situation, and so he's basically saying, look, I'm the king, and I'm not going to hold any animosity towards all you guys, which I think is very, very, very magnanimous on David's part. Like I said, if it were I would have severe problems with what he's trying to do here. Yeah. But I understand why he's trying to do that. He's trying to soothe it over. Look, it's not going to be an us versus you guys mentality. We're all in this together. Let's fix this. So, and this apparently does work. It smooths over the elders, and David is welcomed back to the palace. Now, I want to show you another image here. Right here.
Lots of pictures today.
I got a couple of them. Come on, bring it up. Bring it up.
Play? I'm not supposed to play music.
There we go. All right, so this is going to be important in today's lesson too. So this is David leaving, all right? So he was right here in this area in Judah, and he went through, crossed over from Gilgal and went across the Jordan and went out. This is the area, by the way, this is the forest of Ephraim. Remember, we talked about that. This is the territory of Benjamin up here. or Ephraim. Remember Ephraim right here, and Benjamin's down here. And as he was crossing through, that was when the guy was heaping all those insults on him, until he got to the river. They crossed over, and he went over here to. I'm probably going to mispronounce it, and I'm going to do it on purpose because there's no way. I'm going to call it Manaheim because Manaheim Sea Rolls. It's not. It's Mahanaim, but but that's what I'm going to. In my mind, that's what I'm going to be thinking. But anyway, so he was fleeing to get here. To be taken care of. And you, Dad, when you were reading, and you said, thanks for giving me all these lists of all these ridiculous names, the guys that were giving him provisions and all that stuff in Manaheim, one of the guys that did that is going to be very, very important in today's lesson. But anyway, so now the battle is over, and he's coming back across the Jordan. Now, as he's coming there, it's sort of weird. He's got this whole welcoming party of all the characters that we've been discussing showing up. Hey, you and I are okay, right, David? You don't hold that against me, do you? We're good, right? And so we're gonna go through this list of cast of characters, and and each one in turn will come up and make their proposal, to make sure that they're okay. Because remember, David right now apparently has got this magnanimous spirit where it's okay, let bygones be bygones, and so. So remember that guy, Shimi.
He also has the power to kill all those people.
He does. So you remember that guy Shimi, the guy I was talking about, the guy that was keeping stuff on? He's the first guy that we're going to come into contact with. So Dad, 16 through 23, please.
Let's see, 16. Shimel, son of Gera, the Benjamite from Behurim, hurried down with the men. To get some lighter, of Judah to meet King David. With him were 1,000 Benjamites, along with Ziba, the steward of Saul's household, and his 15 sons and 20 servants. They rushed to the Jordan where the king was. They crossed at the ford to take the king's household over and to do whatever he wished. When Shimel, son of Gera, crossed the Jordan, he fell prostrate before the king and said to him, "May my Lord not hold me guilty. Do not remember how your servant did wrong on the day that my Lord left Jerusalem. May the king put it out of his mind, for I, your servant, know that I have sinned. But today I have come here as the first from the tribes of Joseph to come down and meet my Lord the king." Then Abishai, son of Zeruiah, said, "Shouldn't Shimel be put to death for this?" He cursed the Lord's anointed. How far?
25. No, 23, sorry.
23?
Yes, sir.
David replied, "What does this have to do with you, you sons of Zeruiah? What right do you have to interfere? Should anyone be put to death in Israel today? Don't I know that today I am king over Israel?" So the king said to Shimel, "You shall not die." And the king promised him on oath.
Okay, so we know
what's going to happen.
That David harbors a grudge against this guy. Right? He can talk. But remember,
he's biting his tongue on
he's on. King David's in a tenuous spot. He has to try to make peace. He has to try to be the good guy. Right? He can't be the guy that I'll let you be the leader, but you got to go. He can't do that. So he's got to be pretty much. This is a good time to hit up the king for forgiveness because the nation is watching him. At that point. So. But in this generous moment, he even spares Shimi's life. In fact, he goes so far as to promise that as long as he's king,
and alive,
Shimel won't be killed. However, fast forward to David's last breath on this planet. We talked about this in Kings. He advises Solomon, "You got to kill that guy," which is keeping a promise. I mean, David won't be king. After he gives this advice to Solomon, that's the last thing he says. So his order to kill Shimel won't take effect until after he's dead, for sure. So it says, as long as I'm king, you won't be put to death. It's stretched, but it's a promise kept. I'm pretty sure that dying wish was granted, by the way.
Yeah.
But here, David can move past that unfortunate episode where Shimei was a jerk. So who's next? Oh, that's right, Mephibosheth. Pastor, I gotta complain. You didn't tell us the whole story when we learned about this guy. Now,
how do you pronounce his name?
Mephibosheth. Now, I mean, David was keeping a promise. And by the way, isn't that another way David is a man after God's own heart? He keeps promises.
Yeah.
To the extreme. I mean, think about it. So he had promised Mephibosheth. David was kind to Mephibosheth because he made a promise to Jonathan, David's best friend and Mephibosheth's dad, not only sparing his life, but make sure he ate at the king's table, which was quite an honor. By the way, I tried to look up King's Table. You have no idea how many restaurants have taken that as their name.
Really?
Yeah, it's impossible to get any accurate history on what the King's Table actually represented or how prestigious an event it was. I mean, I know it was.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like being invited to the White House to have dinner with the president. I mean,
Every day.
Yeah, do the same sort of thing. But just eating at the king's table every day is quite an honor. He gave all the lands that belonged to Saul to Mephibosheth. You got to understand. Mephibosheth, when he limped his way in, he said, "Why is a dead dog like me take the notice of the king?" That was when David said, "I reinstate all of Saul's property belongs to you now." But when David was on the run, all right, so fast forward now, David is leaving. Ziba, who was Mephibosheth's aide, and he's here now, told David that while he, Ziba, was bringing all the provisions to David and his men, remember, he brought wine and he brought wheat and all that stuff, he said, and David said, "Well, where's Mephibosheth at?" And he said, "Mephibosheth has decided to stick it out in Jerusalem because he's thinking he's going to reclaim the throne since you're not there anymore."
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah. So
he would have been, that's a reasonable thing, isn't it?
Well, if Absalom is killed or whatever, it could be a reinstatement of Saul's thing. But once again, David was overlooking that. Remember, I told you with Mephibosheth, this is a guy who's a threat to you. I mean, this is the previous administration. He's a threat to you.
Yeah.
And David was able to look at. Now it turned out that it was biting him, in the butt, so to speak. That he trusted Mephibosheth, and Mephibosheth was going to stab him in the back. This is right at the same time that he was at his lowest moment when Shimei was throwing all those rocks on him. And so that was a betrayal of the highest order. I can't imagine how David would have felt about that. But I don't know. I'd have a few choice words to say as he limped his way up to me. And believe it or not, Mephibosheth dares to show his face at the Jordan crossing. Past the popcorn. Mom, 24 through 30.
Mephibosheth, Saul's grandson, also went down to meet the king. He had not taken care of his feet or trimmed his mustache or washed his clothes from the day the king left until the day he returned safely. When he came from Jerusalem to meet the king asked him, "Why didn't you go with me, Mephibosheth?" He said, "My lord the king, since I, your servant, am lame, I said I will have my donkey saddle on it so I can go with the king. But Ziba, my servant, betrayed me, and he has slandered your servant to my lord the king. My lord the king is like an angel of God, so do whatever pleases you. All of my grandfather's descendants deserve nothing but death from my lord the king, but you gave your servant a place among those who sat at your table. So what right do I have to make any more appeals to the king?" The king said to him, "Why say more? I order you and Ziba to divide the fields." Mephibosheth said to the king, "Let him take everything now that my lord the king has arrived home safely."
So he says, "Look, I was loading all this stuff up, and Ziba took off without me."
Yeah.
I had to go back and get my crutches, and I come back, and the whole entourage is gone. I couldn't catch it. I'm lame. I would have done that. And then Ziba went and lied about me. He said that, I turned on you, but, I mean, and I'm going to give Mephibosheth the benefit of the doubt here because he had not kept himself.
Right.
He had not trimmed his feet or done it. He was sort of in mourning/suffering at David's loss, concerned about him. So I'm going to give him the you can't fake that, so to speak. You would think that if Mephibosheth was trying to ingratiate himself to being a king, that he would have had better hygiene on it. So I'm willing to bet that probably made more of an impact than anything. He looked disgusting because he was so worried about David. Going LG. So, but when David had originally heard Ziba, he gave Ziba all of Mephibosheth's stuff. He said, "Well, then you're going to have all the land." So now, after hearing the other side, which he really doesn't know what happened, but like I said, I give credence because of his appearance, he has the possession split. Ziba take half, and Mephibosheth take the other half. And that's going to make for an awkward property line. You remember, you got to move this house over a couple of feet.
Yeah.
And we had such discord. Imagine this one. You lied about me. No, I didn't. Right there at the property line that divides Ziba's property and Mephibosheth. But Mephibosheth at that point says, no, he can keep all of it. I'm just glad you're home safe.
Wow. Well, see, he knows he has 3 squares a day. That's what.
So, there's no word on what actually happened after this point in Mephibosheth. This is the last time we're going to hear of him. So we don't have to try to speak that name anymore. But I'm glad that at least there was a chance that Mephibosheth turned out to be the good guy, or a good guy in this thing. And I would have hated to have him, crush David with such ingratitude, and that being a characteristic that carried him through. It's sort of a nice tie up to loose ends on this one. Now there's someone that we haven't touched on. After Ahithophel hanged himself, all right. In fact, if you go back to where Bathsheba's grandfather, gave the advice, Absalom didn't take it. And the guy went home, took care of affairs, and then hung himself. And right after that, that was when I had you read that long list of people's names. And you're like, why'd you give me this? One of those men was Barzillai the Gileadite, right? And I pronounced it just the same way you did, so don't laugh at me. He was one of the wealthy men in Menahem who helped David a lot. He gave him provisions, but he also gave him shelter and advice. I mean, this is one of the prosperous members of that city. And he also happens to be at this momentous passing at the Jordan. So, Pastor, if you wouldn't mind reading 2 Samuel 19:31 through 40, but I only want you to read the first half of 40.
So
31 through 40a.
31 through 40?
40a. Yes, sir. 40a.
Barzillai the Canaanite, the Gileadite, also came down from Jerusalem to cross the Jordan with the king and to send him on his way from there. Now Barzillai was a very old man, 80 years of age. He had provided for the king during his stay in Manhattan, for he was very wealthy man. The king said to Barzillai, cross over with me and stay with me in Jerusalem, and I will provide for you. But Barzillai answered the king, how many more years will I live, that I should go up to Jerusalem with the king? I am now 80 years old. Can I tell the difference between what is good and what is not? Can your servant taste of what he eats and drinks? Can I still hear the voice of men and women singers? Why should your servant be an added burden to my lord the king? Your servant will cross over the Jordan with the king for a short distance. But why should the king reward me in this way? Let your servant return, that I may die in my own town, near the tomb of my father and mother. But here is your servant Kimham. Let him cross over with my lord the king. Do for him whatever pleases you. The king said, Kimham shall cross over with me, and I will do for him whatever pleases you. And anything you desire for me, I will do for you. So the people crossed the Jordan, and then the king crossed over. The king kissed Barzillai and gave him his blessing, and Barzillai returned to his home. When the king crossed over to Gilgal, Kimham crossed with him.
Okay, no, that's not. All right. So this is where I need to pull that verse up. So Barzillai is one of those people that David remembered on his deathbed. Aside from, this guy was good, this guy was bad, and all this stuff. Barzillai is one of those guys in that list. So we'll get to that when we get to it. But it does go to show that he really appreciated the loyalty and the support that this man had. Remember, David was at a low point emotionally. He was in that pit of depression, and only God was with him, he felt at that point. But this guy really helped him through that tough spot. And so and he told Solomon on his deathbed, you need to take care of this guy's family as guests of the king, perpetually. You need to take care of this family. This man showed support when David needed it the most, and he wanted to show his appreciation to Barzillai. But the old man said, "Let me die at home. I'm going to be a burden to you anyway. I mean, I can't enjoy anything."
I don't like the little things he said about an
80-year-old man. He said, "Can I taste?"
As a young man.
He said, "Can I taste my food anymore? Can I hear things anymore? As far as singing goes." So I mean, he's lost his hearing. He's lost his sense of taste. He just wants to go home. He doesn't want to go and all this stuff. And he's at that point where he's like, I'm just going to be a burden to you anyway. I mean, I'm going to be out of my element, and I'll be over there. Just let me go home. But I'll tell you what, if you feel that much about it, take Kimham with you. Now, Kimham turns out to be Barzillai's son, right? So he says, whatever you're going to do for me, you can pass on him whatever you wish, but I'm going to go home, okay? I'm going to go, and then eventually I'm going to die. I'm buried next to my mom and dad. I'm not going to be able to go with you very far. I'm not going to be with you for long. So take him, and he'll have much more use out of it than I would. I understand that. I mean, but anyway, so.
That sounds like Biden and his son.
Now, incidentally, Kimham. Anybody ever heard of this guy before?
No.
I mean, the pastor himself, who is a biblical scholar, stumbled over his name. He's one of these guys that's sort of like relegated to, nobody knows who he is. I'm going to point out to you that this guy is really, really, really important in the Bible. All right, so this is the only time you mention him as far as my name, but I'm going to bring up something here. Kimham was apparently such a good and loyal companion to David that David gave him a parcel of land. Okay, and kings can do that. I'll give you this, I'll give you that, or whatever. He gave him a parcel of land, and eventually that parcel became known as Geruth Kimham. All right, so this is in Jeremiah 41:17. Now, at this point, remember Jeremiah. This is when the Babylonians are taking over Israel and all that stuff. And so you've got these people that are fleeing the Babylonians. All right, and so this is a group of Israelis that are wandering through, and this is what happens. Jeremiah 41:17.
And they went on, stopping at Geruth Kimham, near Bethlehem, on their way to Egypt to escape the Babylonians.
Now, Geruth literally translates to inn.
What?
Inn, like a hotel.
Oh, okay.
So, this is a residence used as a place for travelers to find shelter as they're traveling back and forth. It is extremely possible, and I don't think I would have been led in this direction if there was any doubt about it, but it's extremely possible that this piece of land is eventually going to be the location to where they say, look, we don't have any room in the inn, but we got a stable in the back. It was an inn in Bethlehem, David's hometown. It said it was right there in Bethlehem. So as David as Joseph and Mary were making their way to Bethlehem 1,000 years from now, from this lesson, they stopped at an inn, which was very, very likely this guy's location. So Kimham's loyalty, and love and companionship eventually is going to translate into something we're going to be talking about here in a month or so, the birthplace of Jesus Christ. Just something I thought was interesting. In fact, it may have been one of Kimham's descendants that actually told them, look, we don't have any room for you.
1,000 years later.
Yeah. It was through an act of kindness, loyalty, faithfulness, obedience, generosity, and a kept promise that points to Jesus' birthplace at this location 1,000 years later. And I'll be honest with you, before today, I never even heard of the name Kimham, or Barzillai for that matter. My spell-checking computer doesn't recognize either one of them. It kept having the underline, look, you misspelled this guy's name. Yet now we know how a reward for loyalty led to a no-vacancy inn that we talk about every Christmas season. So, but now, all right, so we've dealt with that. Now we have to deal with the opposing troops, all right? So you've got the troops that were defending Absalom, the Israelis, and then you've got the Judeans, which were following David. And so how is that friction going to be settled? I mean, these, once again, these are the guys that were over open sights on each other. They've just been trying to kill each other just a week or so ago. Mm-hmm. So how do you mend that fence? And so that's what we're going to be, David's got to deal with next. Let's see here. LG, Are you in 2 Samuel 19?
No, I can get that right quick.
Sure.
2 Samuel 19. I don't.
All right, so I want you to read the second half of 40. All right, so it's not the first sentence, the second sentence, 40b through 43.
40b to 43. And all the people of Judea contacted the king and also half the people of Israel. And behold, all the men of Israel came to the king and said unto the king, Why have our brethren the men of Judah stolen these away, and have brought the king and his household and all David's men with him over to Jordan? And all the men of Judah answered the men of Israel, because the king is near of kin to us. Wherefore then be ye angry for this matter? Have we eaten at all of the king's cost of both, or hath he given us any gift? And the men of Israel answered the men of Judah and said, We have 10 parts in the king, and we have no more right to David than you. Why then did you despise us, that our advice should not be first, and had in bringing back our king? And
Okay.
the words of the men of Judah were fiercer than the words of the men of Israel.
Okay, so at this point, you got the David is showing up with this entourage of his army, the Judean army, if you want to look at it, coming across. When it says the men of Israel, that's the army is on approach. And they're accusing the Judeans, why are you, why is the king so fond of you? You know, why are you getting preferential treatment? And then the army answers back, the Judean army answers back, look, we haven't taken anything from ourselves. We're just trying to make sure that he gets there safely. Just let us pass. And then the Israeli army says, no, we've got 10 shares of him, 10 out of the 12. See, you know, he's 10, 10 to 1, ours versus yours. You've got no right to
be there. He sounded the trumpet and shouted, We have no share in David, no part in Jesse's son. Every man to his tent, Israel. So all the men of Israel deserted David to follow Sheba, son of Bichri. But the men of Judah stayed by their king all the way from the Jordan to Jerusalem. How many verses?
7.
When David returned to his palace in Jerusalem, he took the 10 concubines he had left to take care of the palace and put them in a house under guard. He provided for them, but had no sexual relations with them. They were kept in confinement till the day of their death, living as widows. Then the king said to Amasa, Summon the men of Judah to come into me within 3 days, and be here yourself. But when Amasa went to summon Judah, he took longer than the time king had set for him. David said to Abishai, Now Sheba, son of Bichri, will do us more harm than Absalom did. Take your master's men and pursue him, or he will find fortified cities and escape from us. 7 is left?
Yes, sir.
So Joab's men and the Kerethites and the Pelethites and all mighty warriors went out under the command of Abishai. They marched out from Jerusalem to pursue Sheba, the son of Bichri.
All right, so this Benjamite is named Sheba. They had very clearly defined him as a troublemaker.
Yeah.
I'm curious, LG, what did they call him in yours? Did it say troublemaker? That would have been 2 Samuel 20, verse 1. What does it call him? There is a troublemaker?
And there happened to be there a man of Bethel, whose name was
Sheba.
Sheba, the son of Birch, a Benjamite, and he blew the trumpet and said, We have no part in it. Is that what you mean?
That's what I meant, but it didn't say troublemaker. Mine added the word troublemaker. His just said there was a guy that blew a trumpet. Mine says he was a troublemaker from the get-go. Anyway, so he tells Israel not to follow David. And a lot of the Israelites abandon David. They scatter and go. And so the Judean army, once again, staying loyal to David, marched him into this palace. David locks up his concubines and never has relations with them again. Smart move. Then he asked Amasa to gather troops to deal with the Sheba guy. Now, once again, I'm going to go back up here and point out who we're talking about here, because once again, you get all these A names, you sort of lose track of it. Amasa was Absalom's army general. This is the nephew of Joab, Abishai, Asahel. All right, so these guys are here. These are the three brothers. This is the guy who was the military commander under Absalom. So once again, as David said, he said, "You're going to be my military commander. Gather some troops because we're going to deal with this Sheba dude. I can't deal with that. You know, we're going to have to knock that out right away." I mean, he was all forgiving and everything as he was getting in. Now he's in the tent. Now he's in Jerusalem. In the throne room. I can't deal with this dissension anymore. Like I said, it'd probably be a thin skin for me. You show the slightest bit of provocation, I'm going to take you out. But this guy lingers. He takes a little bit longer than David's comfortable with to gather the troops. Now, I'm not saying David's a paranoid individual, but I think he would be justified in being so, that this guy might actually turn on him and go help this Sheba guy. I mean, he's already been opposed to David once. It wouldn't take much to do that. And so David says, "I need you to go out and gather the troops." And Amasa says, "Yes, sir." And he goes out and doesn't come back. And David's like, "All right, Joab, now you and I are going to take this." And so he sends the two brothers out there, Abishai and Joab, the two other military commanders that he had during the conflict. So now it's the same three against each other. Amasa, formerly of Absalom, and then these two dudes who are brothers who were on David's team. Now they're going to try to take care of the Sheba dude.
Are they out to kill him or just out to find out what's taking so long?
Well, no, he didn't say go out and take care of Amasa. He just said he took too long. I need you to go out and take care of Sheba, since Amasa didn't do it. So he's not sending them out specifically to take care of this guy.
He was not after Amasa, he's after Sheba.
Exactly. In fact, it says now, take your master's men and pursue him, talking about Sheba. He didn't say anything about Amasa, yeah. So, let's see. And by the way, as you can see from the chart, all of these guys, all three of them, are nephews of David. You think it'd be a good thing to be related to the king, but I got to be honest with you, it ain't so great a deal. I mean, you think being a concubine of the king is a good thing. Well, now they're all locked up. You think being the son of the king, you're guaranteed the throne until you start tangling with him. And you think being a nephew of the king would be good for you, but now you're going to have to kill your other nephew.
All his problems are coming from his relatives.
Which, by the way, Nathan pointed to him and told him early on about this Bathsheba thing. Said, your house is your family, your house will never know peace. This is what this means. And so this is all of your family that's causing this problem. It's not really this Sheba dude outside. But as far as like all this discord and everything, this is exactly what Nathan told David. I hope that Bathsheba was worth it. And in my context, I got to say, I think that if you take it to the nth degree, Solomon, as a result of their copulation, I would think that Solomon probably would be.
Amasa died. Then Joab and his brother Abishai pursued Sheba, son of Bichri. One of Joab's men stood outside Amasa and said, "Whoever favors Joab, and whoever is for David, let him follow Joab." Amasa lay wallowing in his blood in the middle of the road.
Now, this, by the way, I need to point out to you, this may, it's not stated specifically, but it may have something to do with Joab being upset that Amasa was going to replace him. It may. I mean, it doesn't say, and Joab was furious at Amasa for daring to take his place. It didn't say anything like that. But once again, this also reminds me a lot of in Judges when we were talking about the guy that grabbed the sword from his left hand and stabbed the guy and left him on the toilet and the same sort of scenario. I think that Amasa has already shown that he was against David once for sure, and this other one maybe. Also, he had no troops next to him. I mean, if you said go gather the troops and he's there by himself, what were you doing all this time?
But it does seem like Joab and Abishai.
Yeah, those guys.
Abishai went directly to Amasa before they went to Sheba.
Well, it says that they were on the road on the way to get Sheba. So Sheba's locked himself up in this place, and they're on the way there.
Happened to pass
and
by.
Amasa is on the road in the middle of the way.
Did they ask him anything? No, didn't say. Did they ask what took you so long?
Where's your troops?
They walked up and killed him.
Where have you been, man? Nothing like that.
But they just walked up to him and killed him. David didn't tell them to do that.
Now, if you think that was a grisly death, just wait. That was bad enough, but we still got this Sheba dude to deal with. Sweetheart, 14 through 22.
Sheba passed through all the tribes of Israel to Abel Beth Maachah, and through the entire region of the Bichrites, who gathered together and followed him.
All right, by the way, I got to point out, Sheba was a Bichrite. Remember, his father was Bichri. So he's going to his homestead. He's going to surrounded by his family members.
All the troops with Joab came and besieged Sheba and Abel Beth Maachah. They built a siege ramp up to the city, and it stood against the outer fortifications. While they were battering the wall to bring it down, a wise woman called from the city, "Listen, listen, tell Joab to come here so that I can speak to him." He went toward her, and she asked, "Are you Joab?" "I am," he answered. She said, "Listen to what your servant has to say." "I'm listening," he said. She continued, "Long ago they used to say, 'Get your at Abel,' and that settled it. We are the peaceful and faithful in Israel. You are trying to destroy a city that is a mother in Israel. Why do you want to swallow up the Lord's inheritance?" "Far be it from me," Joab replied. "Far be it from me to swallow up or destroy. That is not the case. A man named Sheba, son of Bichri, from the hill country of Ephraim, has lifted up his hand against the king, against David. Hand over this one man, and I'll withdraw from the city." The woman said to Joab, "His head will be thrown to you from the wall." Then the woman went to all the people with her wise advice, and they cut off the head of Sheba, son of Bichri, and threw it to Joab. So he sounded the trumpet, and his men dispersed from the city, each returning to his home, and Joab went back to the king in Jerusalem.
So the citizens of that town had little love for the troublemaker Sheba.
But what about this woman? They never named her.
No name
was
at
she
all.
in charge?
She's a wise woman and had words, but this is not the first time. Remember, David was going to go kill that whole farm, and the wife came out, who eventually ended up being his wife, and we know her name. But no, this one we don't even just. It does go to say that wise advice from a woman should be leaned upon.
Yeah.
Employment with the man you work with.
Yes, sir.
It's called "Am I a Builder?" This was read from a master mason at one of our meetings at the closing of the meeting. I watched him tearing a building down, a gang of men in a busy town. With a heave ho ho and a lusty yell, they swung a beam and the sides fell. I asked the foreman, "Are these men